What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. We are here talking NFL Week 5. We're in Week 5 already, Randy, and that is pretty crazy. Cooper Kupp is back. Jonathan Taylor is back. We're going to get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Stick with us. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss one of these episodes. All right. Like I said, we're back. We're a little late this week, but it's okay because we're still getting this out before Sunday. So it's going to be good. We're going to talk through some Cooper Kupp. We're going to talk through Jonathan Taylor. And the AFC South is pretty crazy. We're also going to do our game previews, and then we're going to get into our Against the Grain fantasy starts. We have a couple of spicy ones, I kind of think, this week, but Randy's been hitting these like crazy. So just ride his picks every week. So first thing, Cooper Kupp is back. It sounds like he might be on a snap count, but he was officially activated today on Saturday. The question in the thumbnail, why a lot of people probably clicked into this video, are you starting Cooper Kupp this week, Randy?
No, but it's a dependent on an option thing. I think the snap count will be real for him, and that's because his replacement has been real, and that's been Puka Nacua, has been killing it. While I do think both can survive in this offense really easily, I do think with Cooper Kupp, you're going to try and get him back as healthy as possible. Anytime he's kind of rushed back, he's usually gotten kind of injured again. So I think they're going to be super safe with him. They're playing a little bit better than they thought they were maybe this to start the year. So to me, while I think Cooper Kupp is involved throughout the entire game, like on a 12-play drive, I think he's going to be sitting out at least 5 plays. So stuff like that, I think he could easily still be a flex play for you. But for where you drafted him and what you want him to be, that's a sit in that terms, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think there are some teams that probably need him to
Yeah,
come back and enter their lineup. And that's why, like, I think I'd start him in certain spots. I don't have too much Cooper Kupp. I wasn't super into drafting him this year just based on his cost and the late preseason injury. But yeah, I mean, I kind of think that when he gets into this offense, it's going to look a little bit different. Van Jefferson has been leading in slot snaps, so it seems to me like he's going to be the odd man out. Puka Nacua has been working the same areas as Cooper Kupp, though, and that's the interesting part. I don't know if they're going to change how the offense is deployed, if Cooper Kupp is going to kind of work outside a little bit more with how they've evolved their offense. I'm curious to see how it shakes out. I don't think we're going to get all of those answers this week, but I do think that we could look at like a 6-catch, 50-yard day where playing him doesn't kill your week. And I think that's why I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first week of bye weeks. There's some bigger receivers on bye, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, just name a couple. So that's going to really ding a lot of offenses. If you were waiting on Cooper Kupp, and this is the first week of buys and he's back, I do understand having to push him in there just to hope for a touchdown. Otherwise, 8 to 12 points is kind of what I'm assuming. But they also could just full send it this week. It's just I don't see the reasoning of doing that when Puka has been doing so well and Tutu Atwell has been doing so good as a complementary piece. I don't know how he fits in. We just know Van Jefferson doesn't fit.
Yeah. I wonder how intentional it was to move Van into the slot during that time frame too. So, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Jonathan Taylor is also back. It's kind of the biggest news is that Jonathan Taylor just signed a huge contract extension, about $14 million per year with like 26.5 guaranteed, I think is what it was reported at, 24.5, something like that. But we've already seen the reports of a snap count. They're going to kind of ease him back. This is one where you almost are forced to start Jonathan Taylor, but you don't feel great about it. And it's a really tough matchup. What do you do? What are you doing with Jonathan Taylor, Randy?
This is like the hardest one because, like I said, there's some bye weeks with big name receivers. This week feels kind of like a running back dumpster fire of a week if you don't have Bijan Robinson. So there's going to be plays this week where you're deciding between Jerick McKinnon or Jonathan Taylor or something like that. Or, I mean, there's aspects of that to where I think Jonathan Taylor should be decent enough. However, wasn't really part of the offseason program, hasn't really gotten into game shape, I would assume. I guess you never really know what someone's been doing outside of the facility. He was recovering from an ankle injury as well, technically. We've seen what Josh Jacobs has done the first few weeks while he's trying to get his actual game shape legs under him. You're going up against the Titans as well as one of the best run defenses in the league. I have a lot of reservations, but like you said, if you're sitting there and you're thinking of playing Cam Akers or him, that's honestly
in that case.
I would probably play Jonathan Taylor for the touchdown upside.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I think they're going to be intentional about getting him into the end zone if they do have one of those opportunities. I do think this run offense and how it's schemed up will give the Titans a little more issues up front, a little more issue up front. So I kind of think that this is one of those where, sure, he's probably not going to have like 150 yards rushing, but maybe he has like 60 yards rushing and falls into the end zone, and then you're kind of good with that. I think he'll add a couple catches. Anthony Richardson's been, not feeding running back targets, but like I think Jonathan Taylor introduces a bit more to that than Zach Moss. So thank you to Zach Moss for a couple of my rosters. See you later, bud. After this week, exactly. I mean, I don't expect Zach Moss to have a good game if Jonathan Taylor doesn't either. So
I honestly don't expect much of the rushing attack for the Colts this week, and that's really my kind of holdback on playing Jonathan Taylor more than anything.
Yeah. All right. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into our game previews is the AFC South. The AFC South is one of the most interesting divisions right now to me. They are all 2-2. The Texans have been a pleasant surprise. The Jaguars have been an unfortunate, kind of disappointing team. We're about to talk about them here shortly, but we haven't really learned much about the Titans other than they're getting blown out or they're blowing people out. There's really no in between for them, and those are kind of the three that I think have a chance in this division. Randy, how do you think this is going to shake out the rest of the year now that Jonathan Taylor's back? Do you think that impacts things? Do you think that the Jaguars figure it out? We kind of talked about their offense a little bit a couple of weeks ago, but what do you think?
I really think everyone has a chance. So okay. I do think the Colts have a chance. I mean, if we're giving the Texans an opportunity with how bad their defense has been playing most weeks, not playing the Steelers, you pretty much have to give the Colts defense a chance here. So, and we really don't know what the Colts offense is truly going to be with Jonathan Taylor yet. Obviously, if Zach Moss was able to have great games in this system, you got to assume Jonathan Taylor is going to absolutely explode. So, and it's just the touchdowns. Is A-Rich going to take more of them than we'd like? We'll see, but I think everyone's got a chance. I do think in my heart of hearts, the Jaguars figure it out and get it going. It's very strange because they pretty much started off the year, not a super explosive game, but Calvin Ridley had a great game. The offense did look really good, and then you're just like, okay, Christian Kirk wasn't involved. That's weird. And it feels like we've been trying to calibrate since then, which I don't know necessarily what that is. Is Christian Kirk kind of like an issue in this aspect, trying to demand touches and changing up the explosive aspect of this offense with Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley being the primary guys in the field? That's my biggest question with this offense. They haven't been able to run the ball super efficiently over the last few weeks either. We haven't gotten the two-headed backfield that we were hoping for and really expected from this offense. So if they can figure out those little nuances to some really explosive weapons, I think they should kind of run away with this because they have probably the best defense in the division all in all. If the Titans secondary is just so bad.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, I'll walk my statement back. I think the Colts do have a chance. I asked the question at the end there, like, does Jonathan Taylor change this? I think he does. I think he's that much of a talent that introduces a whole new dynamic to this offense where I don't think Jonathan Taylor's a great pass catcher, but I also know that teams are going to put 8 in the box a lot more often against Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor standing in the shotgun than they would if Zach Moss is standing back there. So what it's going to do is it's going to open up things underneath for Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. I think the explosive plays that we haven't seen a ton of explosive plays from the Colts through the air. We've seen a few because of Anthony Richardson, but I think Jonathan Taylor being there kind of opens that up. I agree with you, though. I think the Jaguars do kind of figure it out. At some point, Doug Peterson's probably going to have to take back play calling, and I think that kind of will help that offense be a little bit more explosive. Trevor Lawrence, a lot of people are saying, oh, he's been so bad. No, he hasn't. He's been bad for fantasy, but he has been a fantastic quarterback out there doing what he's supposed to do. The problem is what they've called has not been very good. They're keeping everything shallow. So I'm interested to see those two teams. The Titans to me are one of those weird ones where I like their schedule the best of the remaining. I mean, they all pretty much play the same teams. So, they haven't played a ton of division games yet, and I think they get the NFC South and the AFC North as their, I think 3 of these teams have the Bengals, I think, this year. But that's not that challenging of a game at this point. I could see a lot of these teams.
We'll see in 4 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see if Burrow's healthy. But yeah, this division is one that I'm going to keep an eye on. And the Texans going out there and just routing the Steelers last week, kind of my ears perked up a bit. I think Stroud's legit enough to where they could pull out. I think they're just going to be a thorn on a lot of people's sides.
I think they're going to be the classic team of the defense is doing nothing and the offense is willing and able to just throw it out enough and have enough weapons to make explosive plays. I mean, we're seeing the same thing from the Vikings, and we all think they're much better than a 1-1 team. So I think that says a good amount there. And I think it just validates what a lot of people thought of Stroud, that this is his perfect system. If they could run the ball a bit better, it'd be the absolute perfect. But him being able to just sit back and deal where he can is his ideal location. So, and they still don't have the best weapons they could. They could easily, I mean, maybe if you don't trade up to get Will Anderson, but you could easily get another CJ Stroud weapon, probably from his old team, and this offense looks even crazier next year. But yeah, and that's why I brought up the Christian Kirk issue, because they looked a little bit more explosive downfield week 1 for the Jaguars. And then Christian Kirk wanted more touches. He got a bunch week 2, and since then we've been 10 yards in, it feels like, and it's really dull and New York Jets until last week-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Also, CJ Stroud, QB1. Also, Will Anderson has been just balling. He's going crazy in pass rush win rate and things like that. So I think when it comes down to it, they got the 2 players that they really wanted, and it's probably a good trade, but it just sucks that they don't have a first.
Is pissed.
I know. Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get to our game previews. We are talking Jaguars at Bills, Cowboys at 49ers, and then Texans at Falcons this week. And we're going to start with the Jaguars at the Bills. The Bills are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. Jaguars offense fixed is what I wrote here, because last week, we just talked about this a ton, but everything 10 yards and under, but they were able to score a few points. It wasn't the most explosive day, but Trevor Lawrence he completed the ball a little bit at a higher rate, and the wide receivers had less issues. I'll say that. 5.5 is an actual favor at home. It's kind of close, but it's not a full touchdown favorite. The Bills look like the best team I've ever seen last week. I'm a little shocked that the line's this low.
It's a neutral game, so
yeah,
that's why. Fair. I mean, if anything, this is in London. The Jaguars have been there since last week. So I think this is really a home game for them at this point. Yeah. So I think that's why the line's under the 7. And the Jaguars looked good last week, if not explosive. I mean, they played the Falcons, which is ironic because they kind of look like the Falcons. They won the game, but it was at what cost? We're all bored. So everyone much rather watch the Toy Story cut of the game because it was the only exciting part besides Bijan. So this is a weird line. I think the Bills do win this one pretty easily. In my opinion, I do think they win by over 5.5, and I do think it hits the over. this is where I'm very curious how Doug Peterson gets this offense working this week, because the Bills traditionally are a team that doesn't let you do the explosive plays. So in theory, last week is what we should get. But if they play like they did last week with the short game, the Bills are winning this game handily.
Yep.
They controlled the Dolphins going deep last week, and we saw the Dolphins put up 70 points the week before. If your barn burner big score of a game was against the Falcons and 27 points, you're not getting that this week if you play like that. So I'm going to say the Bills make this offense look bad, and we keep hearing the Trevor Lawrence that he's not playing well, even though he is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this Bills team is pretty nuts in that, like, they are such an explosive offense. They can go put up a ton of points, and their defense is designed to make sure that you don't do that. And, that is how you construct a Super Bowl contending team. I think the Bills are very much so that. They actually, in a lot of different metrics, are the top team in the NFL over the Chiefs. I think last week certainly impacted that. The Chiefs kind of struggling against the Jets, but that's the top tier right now. And so while we had lofty expectations for the Jaguars this year, we've seen nothing through the first 4 weeks that indicates to me that they can win this football game. So that being said, the advantage of being in London for 2 weeks, the advantage of, not having to deal with that, the jet lag of getting there when they did, that could be advantageous to the point that they do make this close. I'd still say Bills cover, and I do think we hit the over in this game.
I do think we hit the over. That's my only holdback, is how much is that going to affect? And then Trey White not being able to play, Greg Rousseau out, Von Miller possibly out. It does help this offense. Hopefully Ridley can get loose and really make this offense look like it did in week 1.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next game, probably the game of the week right here. Cowboys at 49ers. 49ers are 3.5-point home favorites. Over under in this one is 45. I wrote Brock Purdy, ? Because there's been a lot of debate about if Brock Purdy's good, if it's just the system. Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee this week and said, no, he's making some special throws. And then you've got people at like the Ringer NFL show saying they can't win a Super Bowl with him based on his play last week. So I don't know if this is the week to judge him. The Cowboys defense has been good. And I don't necessarily think it's that elite tier that it was last year. But Randy, do you think Brock Purdy's legit? Do you think the 49ers are going to pull it out because of Brock Purdy, or are they going to carry Brock Purdy to a win, or are they going to lose this game?
No matter, Brock Purdy isn't like legit or elite, I guess is the way I'd say that. Has he gotten a lot better? Yeah. Last year there was a lot of hype about him coming in and everything. I think he is making winning plays this year. That's the improvement and the difference I'm seeing. But in terms of being able to carry this team or anything, no, because Jimmy Garoppolo made winning plays. It doesn't mean he could lead you to the Super Bowl. He can lead you to the game. But in reality, the defense and the weapons will carry him past them. I do think, like, the best argument I heard this week is, like, if you drop Cousins in, if you drop Stafford in, if you drop Carr in, if you drop any of these vets in, this team looks even better and crazier. Like, he's not dragging them down by any means, but he's not lifting them up necessarily.
Yeah. He's the quarterback that does what he's told, and he does it well. I mean,
For cheap.
Yes. Really cheap. Guy has to have a roommate. I mean, he doesn't probably have to have a roommate.
He wants
Let's
to
be
have
complete.
a roommate.
Yeah. That's been a big debate too. No, I think Brock Purdy, he's a smart kid. I think him playing a lot of football in college, a lot of people underrated that. I think Brock Purdy's definitely better than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah,
I agree though that he's not like a carry you to the Super Bowl type of quarterback. That's definitely not there in my opinion. So
yeah, our assessment of him was a high level backup that could win you games, and at the ceiling. And I'd argue he's eclipsed that, but not by leaps and bounds by any means.
Yeah. Fantasy question. Are you interested in starting Jake Ferguson in this game as like a secondary option?
Yeah, going up against this 49ers linebacking room and safeties, I'm not ever excited to play the tight ends, but Hendershot, I believe, will be out. You're really now down to just 2 tight ends for a team that likes to rotate in 3. Ferguson has truly become the number 2 in this offense, in my opinion. So I do think I think he's an almost lock to be played every week. This is one of those matchups where you're like, okay, well, I mean, this guy's playing the best matchup, so do I play him even though he's a streamer? I think we're in that category this week, but if you're flexing a lot of other areas, he's got more of an upside shot at a touchdown than other guys that you'd flex in this week. I mean, we have injuries at the position. Darren Waller's been a disappointment. Ferguson's going to be a better option than most.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's why I asked. I have a lot of Ferguson. I was super in on Ferguson. So I'm starting him this week.
Ferguson or Pitts? I think that's a good baseline. Well, I know the reaction, but like Pitts has been getting a lot of red zone targets. He's been getting a lot more work and a lot more actual productive targets as the quarterback play is not there. But that can all just click in 1 week. Again, like we said, it's kind of a weird week for the Falcons against a bad defense. There's a good chance he could make some plays, so that's why it's up there. And maybe it's a start-sit question for myself, but whatever. You got to get where you can.
I would play Ferguson there. I'm actually to the point where I don't think I'm going to start Pitts until I see something, and I'll see it on my bench, and I'm cool with that. Like I've already moved off of him as like my primary tight end option and gone to waivers for that, so it's kind of like, I know. It's just I also saw the cut up of his routes from last week where like he's very clearly still hurt or he's very disinterested, and it could be both. But he's not moving very well out there, so I don't love it.
Yeah,
sad.
It was the call I was also making, but I wanted validation.
I know. Yeah. Speaking of Kyle Pitts, the last game that we're going to talk about, the Texans at the Falcons. Falcons are 2-point favorites. The over/under is 41.5. I wrote here CJ Stroud. QB1, I think, of this class from what we've seen so far. I think him and Richardson are in that clear top tier. Bryce Young is not in that tier at this point, I don't think. I think his situation is a lot worse than we expected, and CJ Stroud's might be a lot better than we expected based on, play caller, designing the offense, things like that. My question, though, is CJ Stroud enough to overcome the Falcons being technically favorited in this game? Over-under is only 41.5, and the Texans almost beat that themselves last week. How you feeling about this game?
This is a weird toss-up, like in a pick-em situation. The way they both played last week, I think it's very clear you picked the Texans. The Falcons' offense did look kind of on track for a good portion of that game last week in London, but then Ritter made mistakes, and it took away all the momentum. Stroud hasn't made those mistakes, and I think that lifts him to the next level this week. The curious thing is, what are we going to see from Nico Collins against a true corner one in AJ Terrell? Can he actually get it done this week, or is it going to have to be Tank Dell? And if you're eliminating CJ's options, it's going to be tough to trust that to get you. Like if you're contemplating playing him in DFS over others this week, it's going to be tough for me to play CJ Stroud, knowing that his top option might be completely blanketed because we haven't really seen Collins win those yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Dalton Schultz, ironically, we just talked about Ferguson. I think Schultz is a good play this week as well. Found the end zone last week, was kind of that secondary option, but I do think it's going to be a Tank Dell week. I think Nico is still a fine start, but he's to the point where you kind of have to start him either way, right? Like, I don't think Tank Dell's quite there yet, but I think we've seen enough from Nico where he's one of those, like, I think I said it and forget it, and if I get burned, like, it depends on your options, though, because he was a late round pick.
Exactly. He's a late round pick, so like you're sitting there. This is clearly going to be a decision from multiple people this week: Cooper Kupp or Nico Collins. I mean, that's for me. It's Nico, just because we haven't seen Cooper play. But I would not be against it or shocked if majority of the people in that situation take Kupp.
Yeah, that's That's a good call there. I think the Texans win this game kind of easily. And we just saw what they can do to a bad quarterback with Kenny Pickett last week. I think they can do something similar with another bad quarterback in Desmond Ridder. And I think they pull this one out. I think we hit the under in this one. I don't think either offense is overly explosive this week.
I'm going to take the Falcons. 4 explosions from, in not real life, Christian's least favorite person, but in real life, one of his favorite, Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan has an absolute ginormous day.
Yeah, I think that's also fair. I'm looking forward to that day where Bijan rushes for 200 and catches like 60 yards and has 4 touchdowns. So
yeah,
it's coming. So, all right. Let's get to our against the grain fantasy football starts. So with these, if this is your first time watching, we do pick 2 guys that you're probably not considering starting. It's probably one of those like, I'm only gonna flex this person. I might be in a rough spot. This week's a little bit different because the bye weeks are kind of taking a toll. But Randy, where'd you go for your against the grain start?
Yeah, so I went Jordan Addison, goose egg last week, but this is. I mean, the Vikings need to throw the ball to put up points. We've seen that. The Chiefs' run defense has actually been super stellar this year so far. Not that it hasn't been in the past, but it looks pretty elite with Chris Jones back. So I'm not in love with Madison or Akers this week, really, besides hopefully getting a touchdown. Addison, we've seen the big plays. We've seen the touchdowns. With rookies, it's tough. Like the DFS take for rookies for me is you want to be a week early than the week late where it's, another $1,000 to play the person. I think that's this week with Jordan Addison. I think he has that explosive play, but I think he has a little bit more of a consistency. I would not be shocked to see one of those Gabe Davis type 2 touchdown, 150-yard days from Jordan Addison this week.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. You didn't steal mine like you did last week. Yeah, but I think Addison's one of those people are a little bit panicky about him. They're a bit panicky about all the rookie wide receivers. I think Addison's going to start to get going here very soon. I think this offense, like you said, needs to throw the ball. Addison's a big part of that. So I'm picking Wan'Dale Robinson. This goes against everything I kind of like stand for. I wasn't a huge fan of Wan'Dale Robinson. I didn't buy into his usage before the injury last year, but he came back 2 weeks ago and he played 11 total snaps, 22%. First game back after a major injury. Last week, 64% of snaps, and very clearly a main piece of this offense. It's very clear that Brian Daboll wants to get Wan'Dale Robinson touches however he can, whether it's on short stuff, underneath, let him run. I think he's going to be able to see some stuff downfield as he gets more incorporated into the offense. But he was one of the main 3 wide receivers for that Giants team where we don't really have a ton of clarity. I will say it's tough starting any Giants right now. I understand that, especially after last week. But he gets Miami this week. They don't really have like a shadow corner or anything like that. There's no matchup to really worry about. We just saw what the Bills did to the secondary. Wan'Dale Robinson, to me, looks like a guy that could get, 7 to 10 catches for 80 yards. Might not find the end zone because I'm not sure that the Giants will ever again after watching last week. But because he's that short yardage guy, they're going to get the ball out quick because of that offensive line. Wan'Dale seems like that guy that could take one to the house or at least just take all the targets. So start him up, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, going against the Dolphins, there's a great chance we get some garbage time. And those short yardage guys are the ones that are going to extremely benefit from that situation with the defense trying to make sure you're not making the explosive plays, especially late. They're going to be not pressed up. They're going to be back trying to kill the clock. They're going to be happy to let Wan'Dale Robinson get 8 catches in the second half for 45 yards. But that can win you the day, as we saw from Alvin Kamara last week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. That'll do it for this edition of the NFL show here on the Devy Royale YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast form as well, just make sure you head over to the YouTube, drop us a like, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about our fantasy starts, about anything that we talked about today. Tell Randy how great his hair looks. Whatever you want to do in the comments, just drop one there. And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you head over, subscribe to the Devil Royale podcast. These episodes go up. We also have our college show that goes up on that feed as well. So, Randy, anything to add before we bounce?
It's another week of London football. Let's be ready to wake up and set your lineups. It's going to be great.
Yeah, set them tonight. And then if you're watching this after, I hope you set your lineup. So
8:30 for me.
Too early. It's because you're
I woke up last week, checked my lineups, and went back to sleep. There was no, I couldn't do
That's
it.
fair. That's fair. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.